Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Chocolate Life Live. My name is Clay Gordon. I'm the creator and the moderator of TheChocolateLife.com, and I am your host for The Chocolate Life Live. And I want to welcome everybody who's going to be joining me today live and everybody who might be watching this episode in the future. If you are watching live, I want to remind everybody that they can go into the comments, and if they go into the comments and let me know where you're connecting from today. Not just YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, but where in the world you're connecting from. I can get that up on the screen, do a shout out to you if you'll do a shout out to me. And then also, if you have questions or comments about anything that goes on during the course of the hour, put them in the comments. I'll get them up on screen and we'll talk about them for you. So with that out of the way, again, thank you, everybody. And today, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart as a concept, and it's an example of how I live my chocolate life. Before we do, this is the homepage. You can see it over my left shoulder, my right shoulder over here. I'm flipped backwards over my right shoulder over here. This is the homepage of The Chocolate Life right now. You can go there. You can see all the stories that are currently live, including today's. So this is what we're looking at right now, pinned into what we call the top rail. And then you have a history of all the other stories that have been published on The Chocolate Life, certainly for the last 2 years. And there are bits of this that have been here since 2017 as well. And if you want to, not all of The Chocolate Life, which goes back to 2008, is here on the current iteration of the website. There's a link to the Chocolate Life archive, and you can go to the Chocolate Life archive, and we'll wait for it to load. This is what it looks like right now, and you'll be able to go and look and search through the entire history of the Chocolate Life back to 2008. It's there online, maintained for you to go and use as a research. Now, you can't become a member of this website. You can't add new questions to the website. If you try to add any content, nobody's updating this and nobody is looking at it. So it's just there literally as an archive website. But it was important to me as I made the switch from one platform to another platform, that what I do is I keep this archive up. The Chocolate Life for me is about growing this very, very large community, and keeping access to the history of everything that's been done here is very, very important to me. So that's why it's there. So if we go to today's post, so this is today's post for this live stream, what you'll do is we're talking about something called the Craft Chocolate, or the Cross Country Craft Chocolate Odyssey. And the original idea for the Craft Chocolate Cross Country Odyssey, I'll get it right, I assume, before the end of the hour. The Cross Country Craft Chocolate Odyssey is more than a decade ago. I had an idea that sounded to me like a lot of fun at the time. I mean, as a young child, my family had driven back and forth across the United States on a number of occasions. So I grew up in Los Angeles, and then we drove from California to New Jersey, and then from Massachusetts back to California. But by the time I was in kindergarten, I believe. So, back and forth. And I have these fond memories. I'm sure they bear no relationship whatsoever to reality, but fond memories of parts of those two trips, which included visiting national parks and just lots of fabulous experience. We went to saw Mount Rushmore, for example, Yellowstone, just experiences that are graved on my young mind. And I had this idea that it had been a long time since I'd done a cross-country road trip. I had been talking with my daughter about doing a cross-country road trip, and I wondered if there was an opportunity to combine this idea of a cross-country road trip with chocolate. And the idea I had was to go and find an old school bus, something like the old yellow school bus that you see here, to find an old school bus, try to make it a little bit eco-friendly, so retrofit the school bus for maybe run on biodiesel or to run just on straight used cooking oil. And that what I would do is I would retrofit a bus like this and to run ecologically, put solar panels on the roof so that I could have the ability to also put in a video production studio in the back of the bus. and also to be able to carry around all the equipment that was necessary in order to make chocolate, so that I would have not just bags of cocoa beans in the back of the bus, but I'd have little melangers and a little cracker and winnower, and I would be able to drive around the United States in what I called the magic chocolate school bus. And the idea that I had was to start from here in New York City, head north towards the Canadian border, and then take a northerly route towards Seattle. When I hit Seattle, rather head south towards San Diego and the Mexican border, head back east, and then when I got to the East Coast, head back north. And along the way, what I would do is I would stop in towns where there were craft chocolate makers. And I know many of these people. I have met them at conferences around the country, the Northwest Chocolate Festival, for example, or maybe Chocola in Amsterdam. I've met many of these people at an FCIA meeting, whether in New York or in San Francisco. I've met a lot of these people. But in many cases, most cases, as a matter of fact, I've never been to their workshops. I've never seen their factories. I've never seen the way they make chocolate. I've never had an opportunity to sit down and talk with them in their environment rather than my environment. And so the idea of the Magic Chocolate School Bus and making this trip around the country is that it would give me an opportunity to do that. I would be able to go and visit all these people, and while there, shoot video interviews and do talk with and taste chocolate. And because I have the ability to teach making chocolate, if there was a local library or some other community service or something like that, what I could do is I could stay for a day or two and give chocolate making classes. Just it seemed romantic to me at the time. It still seems romantic to me. I mean, I just love this idea of there being the school bus that goes from town to town throughout the country, spreading the good will and the good mission and the good ideas of craft chocolate making. And I'm happy to hear Rain, who's in the audience, who watching from LinkedIn, said they need the idea in Ecuador. I think we could use an idea like this almost anywhere. I'm glad you like the idea, Rain. If you need help in putting something together like this in Ecuador, then I think it would be a project that I would love to get behind. So this has been in the back of my mind, and I ended up not doing it for a number of reasons. And it had nothing to do with sort of the practicality of the idea, but it did become sort of this deep rabbit hole of things that I spent time researching. So, for example, what would be required to convert a school bus from regular diesel fuel into burning used cooking oil from a restaurant? So the idea is I would go to a restaurant, maybe some diner somewhere along the way, ask them if they had any cooking oil they didn't want used, and I would have a big system attached to the back of the bus where I could filter the cooking oil before feeding it into the tanks of the bus. And then what would it, how do you fit out the electrical system of a bus like this so that what you can do is you can support, for example, this video production capability that I was looking for. Would I need some sort of satellite dish because I couldn't rely on cellular phone service in order to be able to upload videos, or would I wait? When you get into how much space do I have in a bus? Am I going to live on the bus? So the idea is, yeah, certainly I'll put hooks up for a hammock. So if I want to take a nap, I can take a nap in the bus. I'm going to do that. But how far I'm going to take the outfitting? Could I get a sponsorship? I mean, even, KOA, people may know Campgrounds of America. Maybe I could get them to be a sponsor, and I would go from KOA campground to KOA campground around the country, making sure that I visited them so that I could spread the word of chocolate to campers. I mean, I was open to all sorts of interesting ideas. And as often happens in these kinds of things, life intervenes. Something happens, and I just ended up having to put this on the back burner. And then COVID came around and lockdowns, and something like this, while it seems again, still seems very romantic. It receded into the distance. It's not going to be possible to do something like this and to be able to promote it, just be out there, get people together to give classes and things like that. So I had to put it away sort of on a further back burner than I had ever than I had it before. But the idea has always been there. It's always struck me as something that would be a lot of fun, something that I would love to do. And, I'm still hoping that I will be able to do it at some point in the future. Let me know if you think it's a good idea. So please, if you think it's a good idea, if you think it's something you could get behind and support, if you'd like it to come to your country, if you'd like it to come to your city, let me know. Put it in the comments, follow it up in the comments on The Chocolate Life, and let me know what you think. And I will look to see if it makes sense to resurrect it. Again, sort of the gypsy-like nature of doing something like this sounds very romantic. And I'm up for the idea of spending 4 months at a time, 3 months at a time, 4 months at a time, once a year, once every other year, doing something like this could be fun. I'm thinking about it. But as often happens, life intervenes again, and this is why I'm here today talking about this, which is that this coming June will be the 40th anniversary of my moving to New York City after I graduated from Rhode Island School of Design up in Providence. I literally moved down. I think I graduated on June 3rd, and I was in New York City on June 5th or June 6th. I was here right away. My first apartment was on 9th Avenue between 38th Street and 39th Street. I mean, the bottom end of Hell's Kitchen at the time, the top end of what was called the Miracle Mile for food at the time, that part of 9th Avenue. Very, very, very rough neighborhood. I lived in a 5th floor walk up, again, between 38th and 39th Street. And I shared an apartment with somebody. I think I paid $200 a month in rent, which is insane when we think about what rents are now in New York City. We had half of the bathroom in the apartment and half of the bathroom in the hall, across the hall. Fortunately, we're the only people on the floor, so we weren't sharing the bathroom with anybody. But it was an interesting way. But I was in New York City, and I've been in the New York City metro area for 40 years now. And as things happen, I've been in this apartment in New York City, in Brooklyn, Brighton Beach. That's where I am right now. And I've been here for most of COVID. I moved here because of a potential business opportunity to set up a new manufacturing operation in Massachusetts. And for one reason or another, beyond my control, beyond the control of the person I was going to be doing this work with, that is no longer happening. And because of some other things that are going on, this apartment is one that I now need to vacate fairly shortly. I mean, it's on good terms, but I've been told, hey, the people who own this apartment want to do something else with it. And okay, and I have a little while before I need to leave. So it occurred to me that maybe there's, number one, what am I going to do? I'm going to move somewhere else in New York City. That's a possibility. But I have family, my immediate family, so my daughter is living up in Massachusetts. She's currently with her boyfriend looking at his going to graduate school, which could include Trinity College in Dublin, but it could be lots of other places in the United States. And so relatively close proximity may change. And so I have sisters who live on the West Coast. And so maybe it's time to at least consider moving to the West Coast. And so what I am going to do, what I've decided to do, is reopen this idea of the Magic Chocolate Bus, but without the bus. And what I'm calling it is the Cross-Country Craft Chocolate Odyssey. And the idea is that I will put everything in storage or give everything away or give it to my daughter, whatever it is I need to do, and then I will take a suitcase and a duffel, and I will travel by one form of public transportation or another form of public transportation to the Phoenix area. And I'm going to be doing this starting towards the last week in March, the first week in April. That's the idea. And what I want to do is I want to organize that. So, normally what I would do is I would just go to JFK, I would go to LaGuardia, I'd get an airplane, and I would fly. Right? It's the fastest way to do it. When you take everything into account, it's the least expensive way to do it as well. But my thought here is, listen, the last time I did a long distance trip on the ground was 1979, I think. I was in Portland, Oregon. I know I was in Portland, Oregon. I think it's 1979. But I traveled to Cincinnati, Ohio by bus. So I took a bus from Portland, I think, to Salt Lake City, and then from Salt Lake City to Omaha, Nebraska, then from Omaha to Chicago, and then Chicago to Cincinnati, where I spent the better part of a week attending a National Federation of Community Broadcasters conference. And for people who may be in Portland, who know anything about radio in Portland, the radio station I worked for in Portland was KBOO FM. And KBOO, right, I visited there on my last trip to Portland. It's still around. It's still a non-commercial FM radio station. And it was exciting to make that connection. But that's a long time. It's been, since 1979 that I've done a long distance trip on the ground in the United States. Now, I've done some pretty crazy things, like an overnight trip from Santa Cruz de la Sierra to the city of Trinidad in Bolivia on a bus, probably one of the less comfortable rides I've had in my life, but part of a completely amazing adventure to go and visit with Volker Lehmann, the cacao silvestre, or cacao selvagem in Portuguese, the wild Bolivian cocoa from the Beni. There was that. I made a trip from Paris to Voiron by train. This is in 1998, but it was during the World Cup in France. And so while it wasn't the longest of long distance trips, and it was in a very comfortable train, being on a train full of disappointed Scottish football fans was an interesting experience, as you might imagine. And so I've done overnight bus trips in Ecuador, in Peru, not in Ecuador. I love traveling on the ground. I love being at ground level, seeing things, having the opportunity to interact. And so it occurred to me that what I would do is take an opportunity now to take this trip. And so part of what it is that I'm doing here is I'm announcing to the world the fact that I want to do this. And part of my reasons for wanting to announce to the world that I'm doing this is, if you are a craft chocolate maker and you are somewhere in a reasonably straight line, right, between New York and Phoenix, right, and you like me to come and visit you, let me know, and I will see about organizing my trip to Arizona in a way that visits you. Now, of course, we either need a train station, right, or a bus station fairly near to you, right, in order for me to do this. And what I am going to ask in return is help in finding a place to stay. I would like to organize a chocolate tasting with your chocolate, perhaps with, we can do pairings and things like that. It can be used to help, pay for bus fare and train fare as I make my way across the country. And that what I will do is I will, perhaps if it's a Tuesday or Friday, we'll do a Chocolate Life Live from wherever I am in a particular place. We'll write articles on the Chocolate Life, post photos. You can follow my adventures on Instagram and social media. And we'll make it an opportunity to, number one, I think really important is to grow community in chocolate. Craft chocolate specifically around the United States, to provide another point of entry that people, another set of stories, another way that people might be able to find their way into craft chocolate than they currently are, a way to share what it is that we're doing. As I will say, and to have fun, because if we're working with chocolate and we're not having fun, we need to reevaluate our life choices, I think, very, 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 very carefully. So the bus here, not happening this time, unfortunately. So there was somebody who had connected and made a comment on my Instagram account, which is @DiscoverChalk. that if I could get the bus and drive through Kentucky, I would. Could I do that? And the answer to the question is, if I were doing this on a bus, I would certainly drive the bus through Kentucky, make an opportunity. I will probably reach out to Dustin Cornett. I would reach out to Dustin. So for people who may not remember, on Tuesday of this week, we did the live announcement for the Craft Chocolate Challenge. And this was organized by Dustin Cornett and of the Chocolat Inn. That's his brand of chocolate as well. And they're located in Batesville, Kentucky. I'm not certain exactly where Batesville, Kentucky is. Now, I know for a fact that he is going to be taking, I think, the month of March off, traveling internationally. And I don't know if he's going to be back in Kentucky in time, but I'm going to send him an email, ask him if he's there in time. We'll figure out. Maybe I'll swing through Kentucky on my way here. I've had some conversations with some people already, some quick ones, and I think that there's going to be at least one stop in Missouri. I think people should know who some of the opportunities are to visit in Missouri, maybe make one or more of those. I've also suggested that I stop in the Denver area, and so that's an opportunity for me to do that. But let me know. Normally I would say if I can get there in a couple of hours, at 10,000 meters, 35,000 feet, traveling at 700 kilometers, 400 and some odd 50 miles an hour. It's like I'm overlooking all of these opportunities. And what I want to do is I want to slow it down. And if it takes 2 weeks for me to get from New York to Phoenix, or if it takes 3 weeks for me to get to New York for Phoenix, or it takes even longer. I mean, at this point, I don't really care. I'm just looking for the experience of meeting people in person and then sharing those experiences with everyone. Before I jump on to catching up with a comment that somebody has shared, what I want to do is I want to point out that, one of the things that really excited me about working with Dustin Cornett on the Craft Chocolate Challenge is that he was looking at creating a competition using a very, very different set of assumptions about how the competition would be organized. So number one, a very limited number of categories. So there are literally only 4 categories in this competition. There are inclusions, white milk, and dark. Those are the 4 categories. There's an overall awards, which is, let's take the three highest scores from each of the 4 categories, but there are only 4 categories in this. And the only awards that I know that has fewer categories is the Premio Bean de Bar Brazil, which is run by Zélia Frangioni down in Brazil. And I believe there are just 2, a milk chocolate category and a dark chocolate category. Now, Dustin said, right, we're going to limit the number of awards in each category to 3, right? And Zélia has said we're going to limit the number of awards in every category and overall based on a percentage of the number of companies who enter, right? So there's no specific number like 3, but we're only giving out awards. So if there are only 10 entries in a category, there's only going to be a certain number of awards. If there are 20 entries in a category, there are only going to be a certain number of awards, which I think is a really interesting way to approach to approach it. And that's different from other awards where what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, the cutoff for a bronze is 80 points, and the cutoff for a silver is 90 points, and the cutoff for a gold is 95 points. And everybody who scores gets one of these awards based upon what those scores are. So, there was that aspect of it. The other thing that I really liked about the Craft Chocolate Challenge, and this all comes together importantly, is that for Dustin, it was a way for small chocolate makers, craft chocolate makers, to get feedback on their products, right? So, I, as a judge on this, spent more time looking at packaging and thinking about the mold and aspects of presentation, right? And writing extensively about those things. right? So how did, for example, the shape of the mold in terms of the thickness, for example, or variations in the thickness of the mold contribute to the way the chocolate, the difference between the bite, the chew, and the melt, right? For example, I mean, so I spent more time evaluating things and writing about them rather than saying on a scale of 1 to 5, this is a 2 or this is a 4. I mean, so trying to put all those things in words was really important to Dustin. And I think as a judge, it's one of the hardest things for me to do. I have a lot of things that I need to evaluate usually in a set period of time. I need to get through the evaluations, and if I have time, I will do feedback afterwards because I will never get through all the judging that needs to get done. And what this and it's again with Dustin, what we talked about is can we do this awards presentation live? Can we invite the winners and be a part of the live presentation? What is the community of judges like, right? And how are we going to do these judging? For people who may not have known about this, you can go to the Chocolat Inn website and you can download the judging forms, right? Today, you can. It's an empty judging form, and then what you can do is you can buy any of the chocolate bars that were winners, and you can perform your own evaluations, and you can submit those evaluations to Dustin. And what we will do at some point, I'm not certain exactly when it is. I think it will depend upon how many we get, and travel schedules. But what we will do is we will incorporate the feedback from people who weren't judges, right? And let people know, right? Does the general public have the same reactions to the chocolate as the judges did? And which I think is a really, really interesting thing to do. It's a way of engaging with consumers in a way that's very, very different from I think most of the other awards want to do, building community in lots of interesting ways. And that connection, building community, is what I'm saying is what I want to do with the cross-country craft chocolate Odyssey. I want to continue the adventure, continue my chocolate life, engage with chocolate makers around the country, people I know from the Chocolate Life, from these live series, however, right, in person, and share the stories and grow the community in ways that we don't have an opportunity to normally, right? And for me, again, I am in a place where I have to evaluate if I'm going to stay in New York City or if I'm going to move closer to other members of my family. So again, I have sisters, one of whom is in Arizona and one of whom is in Oregon. Am I going to go and move closer to my family? And what better way to do this, I thought, than to go on a road trip, right? Now, if I had a 66 Corvette, 66 Mustang, and I could drive with the top down Route 66 to get there, great way to do it. Certainly, if somebody has one and they'd like to join me on that journey, I would still stop by Craft Chocolate Makers all in one. And that's another opportunity. If somebody thinks they've got a couple of weeks, they've got a vehicle, and they'd like to be on this journey with me, I would consider that option as well. I think it would be great fun. I hadn't really thought about reaching out to some other media outlet about connecting the story, and that's something I may do as well. I may say to somebody, hey, are you interested in a road trip journey about craft chocolate across the country? Now, I am also, one of the attractions for me is like, I want to go, to someplace and I want to know where can I find the best, pecan pie? Where's the smallest dive, outdoor, well, it doesn't have to be dive. Where's the best, outdoor barbecue spot? If I went into Vermont, there's a place right on the Vermont-New Hampshire border near Putney, Vermont, called Curtis's All-American. And if you're ever on, I suppose it's 84, right? Just north of Massachusetts, I think it's at exit 4, heading out of Massachusetts up towards Burlington, Curtis's All-American Barbecue. It's like, who would have thought you'd find something like that in that particular location? So, I'm a huge fan of finding the best barbecue and the best pecan pie and local things. And I want to visit, all those local roadside attractions that you never have an opportunity to visit before because you don't know about them. One of my kids spent a summer at a gymnastics camp in Western Pennsylvania, and ended up having to drive past. Did anybody know that there was a horse and buggy museum? Right. So we took the opportunity to stop and go to the horse and buggy museum. Stuff like that, which, at this day and age, again, being in New York City, we have an entirely different examples of those kinds of things, right, that we go to. And because all of my travel across the United States, for my professional career, almost all of my travel on my professional career has been in the air, I've never had an opportunity to do this. I mean, I do remember I went to Penn State in 2015, although it could have been 2017, for Frontiers in Science in Cocoa and Chocolate conference. And I ended up taking the Amtrak from Penn Station in New York City to, I believe it was Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and then taking a bus from Harrisburg to the Penn State campus. And people may go, Clay, why are you doing that? And the answer is to slow down, number one, and to see the world in a different way, and to see the country in a different way. You never know what you're going to run across, and this is what this is all about for me. So we'll get back to a couple of comments. Rain says, number one, post a map with your stops. I mean, certainly one of the things that I will do, Rain, is I will create a companion post to this one that says, this is the Craft Chocolate Odyssey. I will do a private Google map. And what I will do is I will pin the location of the Google map, and I will mention by name every single one of the companies every one of the companies I'm going to be visiting, so that people will know, oh, Clay will be here, and here's when Clay is going to be there, right? So if you want to go and see what he's doing, you can join him. And again, what I'm hoping to do as a part of this is that, for example, if I am in Grandview, Missouri, and so here's Mike, who's saying hello from Encore Coffee Roasters in Grandview, Missouri, which is just outside Kansas City, that if I were going to be going to stop by Encore Coffee Roasters, and we'd get a chance to do a chocolate tasting, and we'd invite members of the community in to do the chocolate tasting while I'm there. I mean, how much fun could that be? I mean, I think it would be great amounts of fun. So, Mike, I want to let you know, you and I are going to have the conversation about my being there when I'm there. And, Kansas City barbecue, it is a particular style of barbecue, and now we can start going, is Kansas City style better than Memphis style? Is better than Texas style barbecue? We can have that conversation sitting down eating barbecue. I would love to be able to do that. But absolutely yes. But one of the things I'm gonna ask you to do is I want you to create a very, very specific coffee and cocoa barbecue, perhaps a rub if you know somebody who's doing it, or you've got some sauce. I don't want a mop, right? I want a sauce for cooking it. So if you're up for that, or you have a chef friend who's up for that, I'm also up for doing that while it is that I'm there. But I'm looking forward to visiting Grandview, Missouri on my way during this trip. I want to also give a quick shout out to Chef Jeffrey Gardner, who is in the Los Angeles area. Consider invites sent to you. It'll be touch and go, though, as we're getting set to move into our much larger facility. I don't, again, I don't know what the itinerary looks like right now. And I don't know how much detouring I'm going to do. Again, I want to go from New York City, and I want to end up in Phoenix. And I can see going to Kentucky, for example. So, Catherine, if you're watching, right? If Dustin is still around and he's up for it, we can make something happen there. I don't have a problem going to Missouri. It's sort of along the way in the middle of the country. Denver is certainly a place. I've already got somebody who said, please join us in Denver. We'll be happy to do that. LA, not certain, but it occurs to me that there's another opportunity to do something like this, which would be in October, we have the Northwest Chocolate Festival in Seattle. And so maybe what I can do, right, and you can let me know, Jeffrey, whether this makes more sense given your schedule, is that what I would do is I would leave a week or two in advance of the Northwest Chocolate Festival from the Phoenix area, assuming that's where I am, right? Not 100% certain, but it's a possibility. That what I could do is I could do a similar Odyssey from Arizona up to Seattle. And so maybe, heads through Las Vegas to San Diego, and then head north, drop off in the Los Angeles area. I mean, there are a bunch of people I haven't seen in a long time. I know letterpresses in Los Angeles in addition to you. Then head up maybe through Santa Barbara into San Francisco. Head up along the coast, perhaps, maybe get a chance to go to Dick Taylor. There are some people up in that area. Head up Portland, Mackenzie Rivers of Map Chocolate, whom I adore just as a person and as a chocolate maker. She does fabulous work. She's just outside Portland. I mean, I know Charlie Wheelock at Woodblock. There are more makers there. Visit some old friends. People may know Sarah Hart of Alma Chocolate. They're no longer in business. She's no longer making chocolate, but I haven't seen Sarah since forever. My sister is along that route. Jeff Shepard at Lily Bell Farms is along that route. And it would be a lot of fun to go do that. Go to Seattle, hit the Northwest Chocolate Festival, and then maybe find another way back. Come back through Western or Eastern Washington, Idaho. I don't know the answer to that question right now, but what I'm thinking about doing, and listen, maybe by that time there will be a magic yellow chocolate school bus that I can take, whether it's a full-size bus or maybe whether it's a smaller bus. We'll figure it out. But if it's the sort of thing that you think everybody thinks is really, really interesting, let me know. I am really excited about the idea of doing something like this and making it a regular occurrence. Just a way of getting out into the United States, trying to do so with as small an environmental footprint as makes sense, but then be able to go and see chocolate makers. I haven't been to Salt Lake City. Probably, have I been there on business? I don't think I've been to Salt Lake City since I traveled through there in bus in 1979. And when we think about what is available in terms of craft chocolate these days in Utah, so certainly one of the early companies in the business is Amano. We go to their Ritual, I believe, is in the area. Caputo's is there. So Caputo's Deli, which is one of the better retail and online sources for chocolate in the country. Matt and his wife Elena run A Priori Chocolate, or A Priori Distributors, which is one of the bigger craft chocolate importers and distributors in the United States. When it comes to Denver, Bar and Cocoa is in Denver. I mean, there are some really, really interesting opportunities to do this. Maybe go through the Upper Great Lakes. There's a lot of work. Interesting work being done in Michigan and Wisconsin. There were people who entered the craft chocolate competition who are from that part of the country, and having an opportunity to go and visit all these people. Maybe do something in September. So head down to the Texas region because that's when the Dallas Chocolate Festival is happening. So all sorts of possibilities. So looking forward to do that. Catherine, you are watching. Great. I know of Whelpdale Craft Chocolate. I do not know if I have tasted their work, but I'm aware that there is such a company. I don't know that I've ever. I know that I have driven through Kentucky, and I know that there's been at least one overnight stop in my life in Kentucky. I don't think that part of my chocolate life has included a stop in Kentucky. I spent more time in sort of Charlotte, Asheville. I mean, again, not Kentucky, the Carolinas. Charlotte, Asheville, Wilmington areas than I have in Kentucky per se. I have some good friends who are in the. In fact, one of my first consulting clients ever is in Nashville or the Nashville area, and so there are lots of opportunities to do interesting things that way. And so, Catherine, what I'm going to do is I will reach out to the people at Whelpdale. Perhaps you can help me with there. I will also go and talk with Dustin and see on this trip in end of March, early April. What we can do is we can make Kentucky a stop on this trip. It would be fun. But I'm going to open it up to all of you. I mean, that's why I'm doing this here. That's why I'm announcing it six weeks in advance. The itinerary is completely open. I don't know where I'm going to go. All I know is I've got one suitcase. And you know what I'll do is I'll take a photograph of the suitcase later. I'll take a photograph of the duffel. I'll give you an idea of just what I'm going to be traveling with for the course of time, and let everybody know what it is that I'm going to be doing and where it is that I'm looking to go, and put it out there to the world. I'm going to let the universe help me decide what it is that I'm going to do in this particular case. I mean, I love being flexible. I mean, I'm one of those people, when I travel overseas, the only things I need to know when I do overseas travel on my own is I want to know where I'm spending the first night. So the only reservation I need to know in advance is where I'm spending the first night when I arrive. No matter if I'm in Amsterdam or Paris or wherever it is, I want to know where I'm staying that first night. And then I want to know where I'm staying the last night and when my flight departs, right? But otherwise, the idea of having flexibility in the schedule so that if something comes along and says, oh, let's go do X and Y and Z, let's go do that. And the last time that happened to me that, I can remember, just unfolding in lots of really interesting detail, was I was in Paris in 2009 for the Salon du Chocolat. And I was there with a friend and a colleague. People may know her, Vanessa Barg, the founder of Gnosis Chocolate. And we were presented with an opportunity when we were at the Salon to go and visit Francois Pralou in Rouen. And Vanessa wanted to work with him to make chocolate for him. So a custom bit of chocolate. But what that meant was that we had some time in our schedule, and we did not know what we were going to do between when we could go visit, when the salon ended, and when we were, going to visit Francois. And we ended up flying to Rome because Vanessa's mother was living in Rome at the time. I had never been to Rome. I'd always wanted to go to Rome. I've had a fabulous day or two walking around the city, seeing the Pantheon, having some of the best artichokes I've ever had in my entire life. There's a fabulous coffee place called Gran Eustachio, which is near the Pantheon. A fabulous experience. And while they're getting on a train and going to Perugia for the chocolate festival in Perugia, so Euro chocolate. I mean, and these are things that never would have happened if I had a very, very strict schedule of things that I needed to do before I started out my trip. So I ended up flying to Rome. We ended up taking the train to Perugia, spending a day at the festival, then getting on a plane, flying to Lyon, and getting on a train and going to Rouen, where we had a fabulous 3 days with Francois before heading on a train back to Paris and flying back to the United States. I love that kind of informal nature of travel, the ability to stop, smell the roses, go and do something that you hadn't really planned. And one of the things that I'm hoping on this particular trip is that it's open enough so that as long as there's a reasonable way to get there by train or by bus, I am completely open to doing anything. And so how can you do that? So certainly, if you're watching this, whether it's on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, what you can do is you can go down into the comments and you can share some of your ideas in the comments, right? Another way to do that is to go to The Chocolate Life. And so here is the post for the Cross Country Craft Chocolate Odyssey. And what you'll do is if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll find not only links to this on YouTube, but also on LinkedIn and Facebook. But if you want to promote this, here's some hashtags at the bottom of every single one. There are 4 comments. So one from Mackenzie of Map Chocolate in Oregon, where she suggests that I go visit Portland. Absolutely, Mackenzie, if I have an opportunity to, would love to see you. And some other places in the neighborhood. This is great. I'm going to love that. Not just chocolate places, but if you've got barbecue or you've got other food, or I'm going to be there and it's time for the state fair, please, put those in there and help me make the decision. And also Mark and Yuri, who are in Kittredge, Colorado. They're one of the winners for the 2023 Craft Chocolate Challenge. So here's an invite to go visit them in Kittredge, and some other people that I might do. So please, go and make note of these things on the Chocolate Life itself. And I will put them into consideration, and I'll follow up. What I will do is I will update this post as I get closer to the day when I'm going to leave here, and I'll let people know what it is I'm doing. But I will create a separate post, which, well, maybe not. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just keep on updating this post and put the map in it. I don't know. I'll think about it. I'm not entirely sure. But what I will know is that if you do want to add comments to the Chocolate Life itself, what I need to ask you to do is go and click on the join button, right? So I had a really bad experience over the course of the last couple of years before I moved to the current platform with comment spam. And so I was spending hours a day dealing with comment spam because the tools were bad on Maven. At the same time, I'm having the same problem on Facebook, for example. Just lots of spam posting. I'm spending a lot more time dealing with that in the past. And so it's no longer an option, and I am sad for that. For anybody to post anything at any time, and so one of the things that I ask people to do is I ask people to join and become a member, right? And by joining and becoming a member, the primary thing that it gets you is you get the ability to comment, right? So you can become a part of the community. That's really important thing to do. The other thing you do get is newsletters, and the next newsletter is going to be coming out in the next couple of days. And why is that important? Because Sunday the 19th is going to be the monthly all Ask Me Anything all member call. So from 11 a.m. to 12:30 on Sunday the 19th, I have a Google Meet room that I open. And if you're a member of the Chocolate Life, either a free member or a premium member, what you'll do is you'll get a link to that room. And you can come in and you can ask me anything you want, right? As long as it's related to cocoa and chocolate somehow. And what I'll do is I will consider. I will consider the question and answer it. Now, if you are a premium member, which means you pay a little bit, then what you can do is you can send me the questions in advance. And what I will do is I will go take a look at the questions, and I will have answers for them and be prepared to answer them during the AMA call. So there's always a free member. There has been a free membership level since 2008, which the Chocolate Life started. I don't do Patreon. You'll notice that there's no advertising on the website. And while I am open to sponsorships and things like that, one of the ways in which the Chocolate Life stays on the air is through your contributions. And there are, in fact, 5 levels of contributions that you can, so 4 in addition to the free membership. And if you look through, they include consulting services, coaching services, and a bunch of other things that can help you get your chocolate business off the ground. Not something that is a requirement. As I say, there's always a free level. These days, coming up with spare cash, everybody is looking for their websites or their communities to be supported on Patreon or something like that. So there's no pressure. It's just that if you do like what it is that I do and want to support it, please do what you can. But signing up and becoming a free member is the best way to start off supporting what it is that I do here. Now, I think I've gone over the whole idea of the cross-country craft chocolate Odyssey in detail to let everybody know what it is that's going on. What I want to say are two things. Number one is that this coming Tuesday, which is Valentine's Day, which is the 14th of February, what I am going to be doing is hosting a live stream interview with somebody who's on the organizing committee for this new French competition. So this is the second year that they're doing chocolate, but the focus of this competition is chocolate bars which are made in the country of origin of the chocolate. So this is the AVPA is the Agence Valorisation de Produits Agriculture, right? And they focus on agricultural products, right, and the country of origin. Now, in order to be a judge, you must be French, right? It is very, very much aimed at the French consuming public. But I think it's very interesting that it's the only international competition which focuses on production and origin. And so I'm going to be having an interview this coming Tuesday with one of the people who is a part of that project, who just came back from Togo, which is not generally considered to be a big cocoa producing country. They do produce cocoa, but he's just come back from Togo. We'll be sharing some information about cocoa in Togo. He has a background in coffee, so we'll be doing some overlap between cocoa and coffee. So Mike, if you're still here, you might be interested in that. If you know anything about Togolese, I think coffee could be interesting. And we'll be talking about that competition as well. I'm also going to carve out a few minutes, even though it is Valentine's Day, and so it's maybe a little late, to think about how to gift chocolate for Valentine's Day. I will make that a part of the segment as well. For anybody who's waiting to the last minute to find something to share with a special person in their life, and they're thinking about chocolate as a way of doing it, some last minute advice on the best ways to go and do that. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much to everybody who joined me today. I want to thank Chef Gardner, right? So Jeffrey, thank you very much. I will be in touch, and we'll see about Los Angeles, either in this trip, which is going to be in the late March, early April timeframe, or perhaps in October around the Northwest Chocolate Festival. We can talk about something there. Rain, all right. I know that we have a call soon. We'll talk about the bus doing something like that in Ecuador, because I think that would be a great idea. Mike, looking forward to making it to Kansas City. And Catherine, Louisville and Batesville, heading down to Kentucky, would really, really be interested in making that happen as well. And with that, everybody, we're going to do something unusual, which is we're going to end a few minutes early. Normally, we're 5 to 15 minutes late. We're going to end a few minutes early. And I want to end as I always do end. The whole idea of this cross-country Odyssey is, for me, is rooted in a sense of adventure and fun, and sharing my passion and my interest and my love for what it is that I do with everyone else. Growing community and finding ways to get people more interested in chocolate, and especially craft chocolate, and supporting small producers, right? But because all of this is motivated out of a sense of adventure and fun, and what the Chocolate Life is about is finding something that you're interested in, and then not only something that you're interested in, but something that you're good at. So in that respect, it's a little bit like the Japanese concept of ikigai. But the thing about the Chocolate Life, which I think makes it a little different from other people who talk about this, is that you take that connection, right, and between what you're interested in and what you're good at, And what you do is you proactively encourage others to find and follow their own chocolate life. Again, might not be chocolate, could be anything else, but you want to be able to um, inspire others just as if I have been inspired by so many, right? And this adventure concept is a really, really important part. And so I will sign off, as I always do, by reminding people that if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, I think you're doing it wrong. So ciao, everyone, until this coming